John McManus, president of the John Birch Society. Mr. McManus's remarks, which are entitled Financial Terrorism, Hijacking America Under the Threat of Bankruptcy, are to the Northern Virginia TRIM committees. TRIM, which stands for Tax Reform Immediately, describes itself as a nonpartisan network of educational committees and individuals organized to bring about lower taxes through less government. Mr. McManus's remarks are about an hour and 50 minutes long.
Okay, thank you very much. And now for our featured speaker. John F. McManus was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, received a B.S. in physics from Holy Cross College, served 3 years as a Marine Corps officer, and began a career as an electronics engineer in 1960. In 1966, he left the engineering profession and accepted a full-time position with the John Birch Society. He has served in a variety of posts and has been the organization's chief spokesman since 1973. In June 1991, he was named president. He is a writer, a speaker, a film and television producer, an editor, and a radio and television spokesman. I am honored to introduce to you John F. McManus.
Thank you, Larry, and thank you, the other Larry. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for giving up an evening of your time to come and listen to what we have to say. I feel privileged whenever anybody is willing to be part of an audience. And I'm supposed to hook this on my belt here now. I did have a degree in physics, and I did work in the electronics industry, and you can now watch me electrocute myself here. I think I got it. We hear a lot of criticism today about the government school system, and I know that there are good teachers in a lot of these schools who manage to do a good job in spite of the system that they're in. But I always like to tell a story at the start of a program, and my story this time is about a mother that had a terrible time getting her son to go to school. And she kept saying, "You got to go to school, you got to go to school." And he kept saying, "No, I don't want to go to school. No, I don't want to go to school." "But you got to go to school, you got to go to school." And finally he said, "Give me a couple of good reasons." He said, "The teachers don't like me, the principal doesn't like me, even the janitor doesn't like me. Why should I go to school?" So the mother said, "Well, you want 2 good reasons why you should go? Well, first of all, you're 45 years old, and secondly, you're the superintendent of education." And we in America, of course, we run into a lot of people who put the wrong emphasis on things. And some people who are somewhat skeptical about a lot of things that they should believe, and vice versa. And there was a boy that one time came home from a Sunday school class, and his mother was eager to find out what he'd been taught, so he said, "Well, what was it about today?" And he said, "Oh, Mom, what a story they told us today." "Well, oh, tell me all about it," she said. Well, she said, it was about Moses leading the people out of Egypt, and the Pharaoh's army was chasing them, and it was getting pretty rough on them, and pretty soon they got to the Red Sea, and they couldn't get across, and the army from Egypt was coming up after them. He said, so Moses got on his walkie-talkie, and he called in the Israeli Air Force, and they came and bombed the Egyptian army, and then the Israeli Navy came across the Red Sea and picked them up and took them to safety. And his mother looked at him and said, "Is that what they told you?" And he said, "Well, no, Mom, but if I told you the way they told me, you wouldn't believe it." You see, the boy was skeptical about something he should have believed. And today we have too many Americans who are believing when they should be skeptical. And of course, we're here tonight to try to make more believers out of skeptics. Now, we always start off a program like this by letting you know that there's going to be a lot of things we talk about that we don't like, a lot of things that we're opposed to. But more important than anything we're opposed to is what we're for. And so we start off with what we're for. What are we for in the John Birch Society? We're for Americanism. And Americanism has a definition. It's not something that we conceived ourselves. It's a definition that was given us at the founding of the nation. July 4, 1776, the founding fathers of our country wrote the Declaration of Independence. And there's where you find a definition of what our country is all about, the philosophical underpinnings of this nation. Specifically, the part that says men are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. There is a God, and we get our rights from God, not from government. And then they went on in the very next breath to define the proper role of government. They said, to secure these rights, governments are instituted deriving their just powers from the consent of the people. And so here everything was in its proper order. God was on top, and then individuals next who got their rights from God, and then down below, governments, with the sole purpose of protecting the God-given rights of the people. Not to divide up the wealth, not to give some the fruits of labors of others, not to do anything other than to protect the rights of every single individual. Well, that's Americanism. Now, when you stop and think about the fact that you can't even teach that in a government school today because you can't start off by saying God exists, you begin to realize how far we have slid in this country. Well, Americanism then went on, and of course the British said, no, you don't go and separate. We still want you under the British king, and so we fought a little war, didn't we? The war for independence, and happily we won. We sent the British back across the sea. We fought that war under the Continental Congress and then the Articles of Confederation, and after it was over, they finally got together to revise the Articles of Confederation, and then they exceeded their mandate and decided to have a whole new system, the Constitution of the United States of America. And you can see the whole thing in this little booklet, the Constitution. Obviously wasn't written by government today. It'd be that high off the floor. Whom does this limit? Does this limit you and me? No, it limits government. Strictly defined powers are granted to government by the people and the states. The states formed the federal government, not the other way around. And then checks and balances and diffusion of powers and separation of powers and everything they could possibly think to get government started. And then they added to it a Bill of Rights, didn't they? Congress shall not, Congress shall not, Congress shall not. And that marvelous 10th Amendment that says if we forgot anything, you can't do that either. Right? That's Americanism. I defy anybody to find foreign aid in the Constitution of the United States. Or the government, the federal government's involvement in education, or energy, or transportation, or agriculture, or housing, or wealth, or health, or whatever. I think they had 4 cabinet offices in George Washington's administration. How many we got today? Well, anyhow, the John Birch Society believes in less government. How much less government? Whatever government is necessary to protect the rights of the individual, period. Now, we also see in our own time here a destruction of American culture. Our cultural base is eroding. The great French political philosopher Alexis de Tocqueville came to our country in the 1830s and 40s, and he marveled at America. He wrote a book about it. And he said, America is great because America is good. And if America should stop being good, America will cease to be great. And so there's a cultural base of our country, and it came through the churches, didn't it? And the churches are under attack today. Our system got set up with state competition, a marvelous concept called a pluribus unum, out of many, one. Out of many sovereign states, one central government with only a few limited purposes. Mostly the purpose of the federal government was mutual defense.